Hiya, welcome back to Green Hill Gaming, where I share my passion of video games with the whole wide world. In this live stream, I'll be having yet another Resident Evil discussion, where I will be speaking the truth. And if the truth stings, well, there ain't much I can do about that, I am afraid. So sit back, relax, but as always, and more importantly, enjoy the live stream. And that includes you, Emily, my good friend. As always, you are very welcome to Green Hill Gaming. How are you doing, Emily? Welcome to my Resident Evil discussion live stream, which I will get right into in just a moment, as soon as I share this live stream onto Facebook, allowing more lovely people to join the live stream. Hello, nerdy face. You got here by accident. Okay. Well, I appreciate that you are here. Welcome to Green Hill Gaming, nerdy face. How are you doing? Welcome to my Resident Evil discussion live stream. Hope you're doing well. Hope you enjoy. Fine, thanks. And you, no problem at all. Glad you're doing well. And I am doing good. Thank you very much for asking. So truth is going to play a big part in this discussion. I'm not sharing an opinion. I'm not expressing my views. I am speaking cold, hard, solid truth. As I mentioned earlier, the truth may sting, but there ain't much I can do about that. I'm going to go now. Bye bye. Have a nice day. No problem. You have a nice day too, naughty face. So, this Resident Evil discussion live stream is aimed primarily at the Zoomer Resident Evil fans. They need to hear the truth. And again, for the third time, it ain't my problem if the truth stings. The truth is what it is. You may not like the truth. You may not agree with the truth. But the truth is the truth. It's not an opinion, and it's not a view, and it's not an expression. The sky is blue. That's the truth. And what I am about to say in this live stream regarding Resident Evil is the truth. Okay, so Zoomer Resident Evil fans, listen up and listen very carefully. If this game right here that I will be live streaming, if this game, which is, by the way, more importantly, is Resident Evil originally released on PlayStation 1. It is, of course, the director's cut, but it is the director's cut of Resident Evil, which originally released on the PlayStation 1. If this game is too old for you, then you, my friend, my Zoomer friend, you are too young to call yourself a Resident Evil fan. Because this game, what you are about to see in this live stream, this is Resident Evil. Fixed camera angles is Resident Evil. Tank controls is Resident Evil. True survival horror. 100% survival horror. Not Leon Emo S. Kennedy jumping out a fucking window 5 minutes into the game, but actual survival horror. And resource management and a true survival horror save system. No checkpoints. All of those things is Resident Evil. Now, as you may know by now, if you have been paying attention to my Resident Evil discussion live streams, you will know that the only Resident Evil games are Resident Evil 1, including the remake, up to Resident Evil 0 and Code Veronica. Every game released after those games are just action horror games with the Resident Evil name attached to them, but in no shape or form are those games Resident Evil. And again, that's not an opinion, that's the truth. So whatever Zoomer Resident Evil fan considers what a Resident Evil game is, they may consider 4 to be Resident Evil, 5, 6, 7 or Village. Some people may say, oh, 4 is the greatest Resident Evil game of all time. Well, you're wrong. And again, and this is probably one of the biggest parts of this live stream, of this discussion, if you are a Zoomer right now, listening to me, watching this live stream, and if you call yourself a Resident Evil fan, if this game right here, the original Resident Evil, if this game is too old for you, then you are too young for Resident Evil. You are too young to call yourself a Resident Evil fan. Because if you can't appreciate this game, then you shouldn't be playing the series. And that's the truth. RE1? The truth. The truth is all that matters in this live stream. And yeah, it's not a view, it's not an opinion, it's not an expression, it's the truth. And just like my previous Resident Evil discussions, I don't give a shit about sales because there's so many factors around sales. There's so many reasons as to why a game sells more or sells less. So I don't give a shit about sales. I don't give a shit about how successful the series is when it comes to sales of 4, 5, 6, 7 and Village. I don't give a shit about that. I don't give a shit about that. Clearly Resident Evil as a franchise is far from dead. But as far as the concept of Resident Evil, that's been dead for a very long time since Zero and Code Veronica released. And that's the truth as well. Games sell for many reasons. I've already spoke about this, so I'm not going to go too much into this again, but you've got to take into consideration that back in the early 90s, not as much people were playing video games as they are today. So more people have access to consoles these days, meaning that they have access to the Resident Evil franchise now, which they didn't before. And particularly when it comes to Zoomers, so they appreciate action a lot more. So as I said, if this game is too old for them, then they're too young for Resident Evil. I'm young, but I play this game, and it's good as fuck. Well, it's good to have somebody who appreciates Resident Evil in the live stream. Good on you, Emily. And hello, Power Slave Productions, my good friend. As always, you're very welcome to Green Hill Gaming. How are you doing? Welcome to yet another Resident Evil discussion live stream. This time I have a truth that is aimed directly at the Zoomer Resident Evil fan base. And again, it's truth, not an opinion, not a view, not an expression. It's the truth, and it's aimed directly at the Zoomers. And the thing is, if this game is too old for these Zoomers, then they're too young to call themselves true Resident Evil fans, because this is Resident Evil at the end of the day. I'm just playing RE4 Remake. Well, good stuff, man. Hope that you enjoy. So, let's get stuck in. Now, Resident Evil is not terrible voice acting. Sorry, OG voice actors. No offense. Um, yeah, so just ignore the terrible voice acting.
Alpha Team is flying around the forest zone situated in northwest Raccoon City, where we're searching for the helicopter of our compatriots Bravo Team, who disappeared during the middle of our mission.
Found it?
No, I haven't found it yet. Bizarre murder cases have recently occurred in Raccoon City. There are outlandish reports of families being attacked by a group of about 10 people. Victims were apparently eaten. Bravo Team went to the hideout of the group and disappeared.
Look, Chris!
So I'll let the cutscene play out. And again, just ignore the terrible acting.
It was Bravo Team's helicopter. Nobody was in it. But strangely, most of the equipment was still there. However, we soon discovered why.
Hey! Come here!
And just shit, I skipped it, never mind. And you know what? That's what I wanted to do. You know what? I might be a random guy on YouTube talking. Doesn't matter. Whether I'm a random YouTube guy, whether I'm PewDiePie, whether I'm fucking Prince Charles, King Charles himself. Doesn't fucking matter. What matters is I'm sitting here speaking the truth. And some people don't like the truth. Some people despise the truth. Especially if they don't want to hear it. But I love that. Because it makes that truth even more real when they react in such a negative way. But yeah, I'm here speaking truth. I don't give a fuck I don't give a fuck whether I'm some random guy on YouTube or not. Doesn't bother me the fuck the slightest. I will continue speaking this truth because it is the fucking truth. Thank you, Emily. Great to have a fan like you in the live chat. So yeah, skip the cutscene. Doesn't matter. It's the gameplay that I really want to focus on.
I don't know what happened.
Barry! Where's Barry?
Well, I'm sorry, but he's...
What you have to realise is Capcom literally just grabbed people from the street and said, hey, do you want a job? Do you want to be involved in this video game project? And I mean, who's going to say no to money? So these random people, half of them have absolutely no experience in voice acting before or any kind of acting. Ended up working with Capcom on what was called Biohazard, and yeah, that explains the voice acting in Resident Evil.
Probably...
No. What is that?
I'll go and check.
Okay, Jill and I will stay in the hall in case of an emergency.
So what you're looking at there is Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, and Albert Wesker, three of the pivotal characters in the Resident Evil series.
Take care.
When you think of Resident Evil, you think of these three characters. I don't see Ethan Winters anywhere. or Mia. Okay, so first thing I want to bring your attention to, in particular, the Zoomer Resident Evil fan base. All you hear is that constant tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock of the grandfather clock. It's atmospheric. That is actually a big part of Resident Evil, creating that really like kind of isolated atmosphere. Because the only thing you hear right now is that just non-stop tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Next, I want to bring your attention to the first of the key elements of this game and what makes Resident Evil. And without these elements, you don't have a Resident Evil game. If I asked you, do you want a cup of tea? And you said, yes, please. And I went into the kitchen and I poured orange juice into the cup, mixed it with salt, and put in butter. Here's your cup of tea, enjoy it. I'm not making you a cup of tea because I didn't put tea leaves into the cup. I didn't put hot water. I didn't put milk, and I didn't put sugar, depending on how you have your cup of tea, of course. But you get my point. So I'm going to discuss the first major element of Resident Evil, which is fixed camera angles. Okay, so right now, camera is fixed in this particular location. So if I move beyond the dining table, camera shifts to this location. So you get a grand view of this grand dining table. Fixed camera angles. Fixed camera angles were obviously introduced in the first Resident Evil, and they were in every Resident Evil game up until Code Veronica and Resident Evil 0. And every game released after those games didn't have fixed camera angles because the Zoomer generation, well, it's too old for them. It's outdated. Well, that means that you're too young to appreciate what Resident Evil is. Because what you're looking at is Resident Evil. So if you claim to be a fan of Resident Evil, but you don't like this, explain that one to me with a serious face. Explain that one with a serious, like, with serious points. I dare you to be serious in responding to that. Yes, Emily, indeed. But yeah, so fixed camera angles is Resident Evil, and if the concept of fixed camera angles is outdated for you, well then maybe Resident Evil isn't for you. And if you like, yeah, I mean, if you don't like this, then you don't like Resident Evil, because this is Resident Evil. So how can you not like Resident Evil but claim to like Resident Evil? That's quite a strange scenario, and I would love anyone to defend that mentality. So as we move Chris Redfield, you can see that he has what people have called tank controls. And there's a reason for all of this, by the way. There's a reason for fixed camera angles. There's a reason for tank controls, which I will discuss as we move along. But I also want to point out the fact that I actually really like these elements: fixed camera angles, tank controls. I mean, I like getting a really focused view on each location. of this dining table. And I think it also helps with the gameplay. It helps with the experience because it draws you to a particular location. So because the camera is fixed at this particular location, I am drawn to the fireplace, which contains a very important item used in a puzzle later on in the game. So that's the benefit of fixed camera angles, I would say, from the point of view of gameplay. Now, I'm going to give you another reason why fixed camera angles actually benefits the gameplay and the overall experience of Resident Evil, because you don't know what's in front of you. You don't know what's behind you. I mean, when you have that complete kind of over the shoulder like freedom viewpoint that was introduced from 4 onwards, you're seeing everything. Well, not necessarily everything, but you can see a lot more. You can see in front of you, so you can kind of anticipate what's going to come next. If I was playing this game for the first time, right, I would have no idea what's in front of me. And this iconic scene, which is like so, I think just sums up. I think that this next scene just sums up what I'm trying to say and sums up what Resident Evil is. Just literally not knowing what is around the corner. And you can only get this with fixed camera angles. Okay, so I'm going to go, I can't see what's around the corner here. But Chris Redfield soon discovers what is around the corner. It's the first zombie to be introduced in the Resident Evil series. And because of tank controls, like I can't just like, first of all, I can't do a fucking drop kick and a fucking suplex like Emo Kennedy does in 4 onwards. But I have to like maneuver my character around and get the hell out of here. I don't understand what people's problem is with tank controls, because I can move around pretty fine here, like what do people want, like, you know, the character to do fucking ballerina moves as he fucking moves along. So as I go along in the live stream, I'm going to be continually
Wesker? Jill?
Wesker? Jill? I'm going
to Jill and Wesker.
I'm going to be repeating my truth to the Zoomer Resident Evil fans, which is, if what you're looking at right now, if this is too old for you, if it's outdated and you just can't appreciate this and you can't play this and you're like, I don't want to play this, this is old, this is shit, this is ancient, this is a terrible game, I don't like fixed camera angles, they're outdated, I don't like tank controls, they're old, I prefer to be suplexing my enemies. If that's how you feel about this game, well then you, my Zoomer friend, you are too young to call yourself a Resident Evil fan. What you are is a bandwagon fan. Okay? What you are is somebody who grew up in a time where the Resident Evil series had blown up, had become a massive franchise, and Capcom decided to make a series action horror, and you liked that action horror, and that was your view on Resident Evil. And then when you became aware, like, well, you probably wondered, oh, this game is called Resident Evil 4, what about 3, 2 and 1 are like? So you go and you look and you go, this is old. That's the reality. That is the reality of not all of them, but the majority of the Zoomer Resident Evil fan base. So I'm here to tell you the truth. That's how you feel, and you are too young to be a Resident Evil fan. Because what you're looking at is Resident Evil. And if you can't appreciate what you're looking at, then how on earth can you possibly call yourself a fan of Resident Evil? Now what you're looking at here is the inventory. Okay. Starting off with 6 inventory slots. Beside the inventory, you have your status screen, so it's currently on fine. So I can only hold 6 items on me right now. Okay. So that's part of the resource management. Okay. So you really have to decide like what items you're going to be picking up, what items you're going to put away in the item boxes, which will show up eventually. So resource management. Now, resource management, it did transition, I would say, quite well into a few of the modern Resident Evil games, or just modern action horror games with the name Resident Evil, at least anyway. But I don't feel not on the same level of Resident Evil 1, including remake, up to 0 and Code Veronica. I mean, there isn't really a lot that I can say or add to what I've already said in this live stream, especially when you take into consideration what I said in my earlier 2 Resident Evil discussion live streams. And sure, if I think of something, I will say it, but I like to keep my points very short, sweet and direct, and have as much truth in them as possible. I don't like to give the history of Resident Evil or just kind of go like full on professional mode. No, I just feel like if I have a truth to say, I'll say it. Doesn't matter how short it is. It's the truth. What you're looking at right now is Resident Evil, and if you don't like what you're looking at, if it's too old for you, but then you're too young to be a fan of the series. And I will keep saying that as many fucking times as I need to. So again, because of tank controls, like it scared the player. I mean, I've played this numerous times, so I have to say the fear factor has kind of died a little bit. And also because of the fixed camera angles, you can't really see where the enemy is at times. Like, it's a deliberate design choice by Capcom and Shinji Mikami, whatever the fuck his name is. It's a deliberate design choice to go with fixed camera angles and tank controls, because it adds a layer of fear for the player because they can't see what's around the corner, and a layer of challenge, particularly when it comes to tank controls, because they can't, they have to maneuver their character in a certain way that kind of a lot of the time has the player trapped in this tight corridor. For instance, this game really scared me back in the day. Me too. I mean, from the iconic scene where the dogs jump through the window to in 3 where Nemesis jumps through the window in the RPD building. I mean, Resident Evil has always been known for iconic jump scares. But that classic music that you're listening to as well, I can't remember a game in recent time that had music like this, and just a real sense of isolation. I mean, I will say it. I mean, obviously 7 and Village, I would say definitely brought back the horror aspect. I would definitely say that. And even at times a very like isolated kind of atmosphere. But just overall, the tone just felt very actiony. Just the overall tone. I mean, like, you kind of got access to some really like powerful weapons, you know, in that game early on. You know, so I would still consider every game after Code Veronica and Zero as action horror games, just using the Resident Evil name. Games now aren't that hard. Yeah, definitely when it comes to the difficulty, that's very true. That's very true. That is actually very true. Like nowadays, you would, like, if you played Resident Evil, like if you played the Resident Evil remakes, like 2, 3 and 4, if you played them on hard mode, anything like a hard difficulty, like that would be like normal difficulty in the original games. And that's true as well. You see, I would imagine that if there's any, like, you know, one listening to what I'm saying right now, watching this live stream, and calls themselves a Resident Evil fan, like they're probably used to like what other Resident Evil YouTubers say, and they're like you've never heard someone like me saying these things. You know, you're probably used to people like defending Resident Evil and kind of making it out to be that everything was okay. Well, not those people, and me. And I'm telling you for a fact, what I am saying is the truth. It's not one man's opinion on YouTube. It's one man who has the balls to speak the truth about Resident Evil on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, like, I have a very simple point, a very simple truth that I want to make very clear to the Zoomer Resident Evil fan base, and I will keep saying this as the live stream goes on, and as you see this game, if what you are looking at right now, Zoomers, is too old for you, then you are too young to call yourself a Resident Evil fan. It doesn't matter if you prefer 4. That doesn't, no, you don't get to use that card. I prefer 5, I prefer 6, I prefer modern. No, you don't get to use that card. You don't get to use that card. That's not how it works. That's not how it works at all. No. You don't get to do that. Because what you are essentially saying is you prefer action horror. And you don't like this game, which is Resident Evil, which is the game that established the series. You're saying you don't like tank controls, you don't like fixed camera angles, you don't like true survival horror, you don't like true resource management. You're saying that you don't like Resident Evil. That's what you're saying. Like, just because you weren't alive when these games came out, just because you weren't old enough, you know, to play these games when they were originally released, doesn't mean they don't exist. And the only Resident Evil game that exists in your Zoomer world is 4 onwards. It doesn't work like that either. Juniors. Random words in Spanish. I was trying to pronounce it, but I couldn't. What does it mean? But yeah, I mean, it doesn't work that way. And again, I'm speaking truth, and as I said numerous times now in this live stream, if the truth stings, I can't do fuck all about that. The truth is the truth at the end of the day. Yeah. I think in some instances you're not supposed to like the truth. Because if you got told bad news and it was the truth, you're not going to like it either. So, I'm just speaking truth. This RE was, it was the start of everything, exactly. This game sold well enough for Capcom to make a sequel. That's how anything works, whether it's a video game or a movie. If enough people watch the movie or play the game, there will be a sequel. And there was a sequel to Resident Evil that was called Resident Evil 2. And guess what? That game had fixed camera angles, tank controls, through survival horror and resource management, and so did 3, and so did Code Veronica, and so did the remake of so did the remake of 1, and so did 0. That's a pretty long series, even at that. That's a pretty successful series to have. Add those games up for a minute now, okay? So you got Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, Code Veronica, the remake of 1 and 0. That's 6 Resident Evil games. Outlast only has 2 games in the series. I'm just using a survival horror game as an example. I mean, Silent Hill crashed and burned essentially after its 4th entry, whereas Resident Evil had 6 games going strong in a row, and they all had the same blueprint. So yes, you're exactly right, Emily. This is Resident Evil. This is what created Resident Evil. It was because of a handful of, like, I don't know what they would be considered Zoomers back then, or whether they be millenniums, to be honest with you. But the fact of the matter is, the thing, as I mentioned before now, and I'm going to say this again, there wasn't many people playing video games in the early 90s, okay? But around the mid-2000s, which is when Resident Evil 4 released, there was a lot more people interacting with consoles, and those people would have never played the PlayStation before, or never played Resident Evil before. They might have heard of it, and they mightn't have liked it. They might have looked at this game and said, oh my god, look at this piece of shit. I'm not playing this piece of shit. And Capcom obviously listened to this, right? And also what's interesting is, if you look at the early betas of Resident Evil 4, you will see that they originally had fixed camera angles, and they had an overall like sense of like what Resident Evil was in that game. But it changed many times. It changed. And they say as a result of what Capcom were listening to, unfortunately, they listened to these idiots, and that's where we got action. And the series has always been action from that point onwards, and it's unfortunate, really. But you're right, Emily. This is Resident Evil. This is the creation of the series. I mean, 4 didn't create the series. Leon Emor Kennedy jumping out a fucking window 5 minutes into the game wasn't the beginning of Resident Evil. Chris Redfield punching boulders, that wasn't the beginning of Resident Evil. Fucking Call of Duty Zombies, which is aka Resident Evil 6, that didn't create the series. Action horror didn't create the fucking series. What you're looking at right now created the series, and if people don't like this, and you know what, even outside of Zoomers, if people don't like this game, but you know, then they're admitting that they don't like Resident Evil. Simple as. And I'm glad you're in the live stream, Emily, and I'm glad you're agreeing with me. And I've had, this is my 3rd live stream now, and I've had people commenting on my videos, agreeing with me. Some not agreeing with me, but there's also people who agree with me. I've had Facebook posts of people agreeing with me. I would say it's literally split down right the middle, and it's exactly, I would imagine that, I would expect that. It's split right down the middle, because you've got a community that is completely split. You've got people who joined the series mid-2000s, and their view on Resident Evil is 4 onwards, action horror. And then you've got the OG fans like myself, who know for a fact that those games are not Resident Evil, because they don't have what makes Resident Evil. If this didn't exist, then RE wouldn't. Exactly. I mean, if there was no Resident Evil, there wouldn't be a 2, there wouldn't be a 3, and there wouldn't be a 4. It's such a simple concept, and I can't understand why people cannot see that. Like, people talk about, oh, Johnny, look at the series of 4, 5, and 6. Exactly. 4, 5, and 6. 4. What comes before 4? 3. What comes before 3? 2. What comes before 2? 1. Like, it's simple mathematics. Like, there wouldn't be a 4, 5, and 6 if it wasn't for the success of 1, 2, and 3. And Code Veronica, and the remake, and 0. works. 3, 2, 1. You know what I mean? I know people are like, oh, here's Johnny moaning and complaining again. And call it what you want, but I call it the truth. Well, Zero is very hard. Like, some people just genuinely despise that game because of how hard it is. It is a hard game. I've completed it many times, but it is a hard game. It never gets any less annoying. It's just, I think that system of switching between characters, I think that was really, I don't know, I think it was ahead of its time. I think it would work better now. And believe it or not, that was actually meant to be an N64 game. Originally. Then it became one of the Capcom 5. I like that, the Capcom 5. There was an agreement between Capcom and Nintendo to bring 5 of their big games to GameCube, and one of them was Resident Evil 0. Obviously Resident Evil 1 and then Resident Evil 4. I forget what the other two were. One of them was Killer 7 and whatever other game in between. But again, look, I don't know what's around. If I was playing this game for the first time, I don't know what's around the corner, thanks to fixed camera angles. It adds to the kind of game that Resident Evil is. Resident Evil is a game of mystery. You don't quite know what the fuck is going on in this mansion. You get a quick, synopsis, brief at the beginning of the game, but you still don't have a clue what's going on. So the fixed camera angles, the fixed camera angles, well, adds to that sense of not knowing what the fuck is going on. So in a way, I actually want to piss people off. I want to generate that response, because if I piss people off, particularly people within the Resident Evil community, then I have achieved my goal. I have done what I wanted to do, because the truth does sting. One thing I always do, I spoke about this when I was playing the remake the other day, but one thing I always do when I play Resident Evil is, even though I know the door is locked, I will still press X next to it. Carving of a sword. I'll be honest with you, I think if any game needs to get remade, it should be Zero. Because that's actually the prequel. Think about that. And the people who want a remake of Resident Evil 1 genuinely piss me off. A reboot, yes, but not a remake, because a remake already exists. And this adds to what I'm saying is, when you tell people there's already a remake of Resident Evil, you see, what happens is, you have the Zoomer fan base coming out. The Zoomer fan base who just weren't old enough to remember Resident Evil 1 remake when it came out, because they were either way too young or they weren't born. Full stop. I was fucking in first year when Resident Evil, that by the way would mean I was 12 when Resident Evil 1 remake came out. I remember that game. I had that game. It was the only reason I got a GameCube. Which, by the way, I wonder how many so-called Resident Evil fans, even back in the 90s, did what I did. Because I didn't even care about the GameCube. I just knew that there was a remake of Resident Evil on this console called Nintendo GameCube. So what did I do? I made sure I got a GameCube. I played Resident Evil Remake. But for the Zoomers, the Zoomer fan base, They're like, oh, that game on the GameCube, oh, wouldn't we make it on PS5? And that's exactly my point. That's exactly my point. If that remake is too old and outdated for you, well then you're just too young to truly appreciate Resident Evil. It's the same, I'm not going to go on about other games now, but it's the same too with Metal Gear Solid. I mean, there's a few things there really. There's some people who consider Metal Gear Solid as the first game in the series, which is not true because it's actually the third game in the series, because the first game in the series is the original Metal Gear, second is Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, and of course the third is Metal Gear Solid. But then you have people who say, there should be a remake of Metal Gear Solid. And again, they're Zoomers who can't remember or just don't care about the Twin Snakes, which exists on the Nintendo GameCube. It's funny actually how two remakes of two of the biggest PlayStation games are actually one of them is still only on GameCube, the Twin Snakes, and the other was a Nintendo GameCube exclusive for a good number of years, Resident Evil and Metal Gear Solid. It's kind of crazy when you think of it. But yeah, there exists a Twin Snakes game, which is the remake of Metal Gear Solid. But again, the Zoomers will be like, they don't have any connection to that game because they just either weren't alive when it came out, or they're just too young to appreciate it. And this is exactly my point. Like, so we won't talk about Metal Gear, but we will talk about Resident Evil. So that's exactly my point, is that Zoomers just have no connection to these games. So if you have no connection to Resident Evil, how can you possibly call yourself a fan? I understand the process of, like, jumping on the bandwagon and, you know, getting into something, you know, for the first time. But the thing about it is, that's not the issue here. Like, there's plenty of gamers who get into a series for the first time that they weren't even alive when it first came out. But the thing is, they appreciate the series. They appreciate the history. And my issue isn't with those people. My issue is with the people who call themselves a fan of Resident Evil, but then when it comes to Resident Evil, which is what I'm playing right now, they just, oh, this is too old. I can't play this. So that's pretty much my issue. Yeah, we're fucking that reminding. I wouldn't say it's an issue, actually. I wouldn't classify it as an issue. I would just say, maybe. Stop hiding behind a statue, fucker. Dead. Now that was a combination of resource management and survival horror. See, resource management and survival horror goes hand in hand, really. But I'm glad that I'm actually doing some gameplay while talking, because I think the gameplay pretty much like supports my what I'm saying, basically. So yeah, if what you're looking at right now is too old for you, well then you are too young to be a Resident Evil fan. Because I feel like I don't care how much this pisses people off now, okay? I don't really care. Okay, I'm going back. I feel like... Actually, no, don't make that character. Why do I keep on running out of ammo lately? This happened to me the other day as well. I don't know what the hell I'm up to lately. But, and again, this is the director's cut, so they can change things here and there. I'm gonna pop in here for a second. I'm actually going to make more of these videos because I actually want to piss people off. But particularly people who just feel like these games are outdated and old. Look, this is something I want to make very clear. If you are watching this live stream, if you are listening to what I'm saying, and you don't play Resident Evil, and you don't like Resident Evil, and you couldn't give a shit about Resident Evil, then this isn't for you. This live stream isn't for you. I mean, if you don't appreciate this game and you don't like Resident Evil, of course, you're not going to appreciate this game because you don't like Resident Evil. I'm talking about people who, like, get so hyped when, like, they hear about Resident Evil 9 news and leaks. Ooh, a new Resident Evil. I can't wait because I'm a big fan of Resident Evil. But then you show them this game, Resident Evil, and they're like, oh no, this is too old for me, this is outdated for me, no. But then you're not a Resident Evil fan. And like, I can back that up with actual, like, facts. I can explain it factually. If you don't like Resident Evil, which is this game, then you can't be a fan. If you look at the definition of fan, I'm pretty sure you're not going to come across a dislike of, a lack of interest in. But you're not going to get that in a definition of fan, are you? In order to be a fan of something, you have to have a positive reaction to it. You have to like it, follow it, support it. So people who put these games down, put down Resident Evil, 2 and 3, and Code Veronica, then you cannot be a fan of the Resident Evil series. Maybe you're a fan of 4, maybe you're a fan of 5, maybe you're a fan of 6. If you are, what the fuck is wrong with you? Maybe you're a fan of 7 and Village. That's fine, you're a fan of those games. Great. But you're not a fan of Resident Evil. You're a fan of action horror. That's the thing. You're a fan of action horror. Because those games are not Resident Evil. Yeah, hitting with those hard facts. And some people don't like it. They're pussies. They're pussies. You know? That's why they react all, that's why they get all hot and bothered. Because they know what I'm saying is the truth. And they know I'm hitting them with those hard facts. The hard facts that I just don't want to hear. And I know I'm going backwards. I'm just going around in circles. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. It's Kenneth from the Stars Bravo team. Now he's become a mere shadow of his former self. Wait, what? Well, I got the ammo eventually. I knew there was fucking ammo there somewhere. Wait, I just realised something for the first time. Just hold a second. Let me talk to him again. They won't interact. Do you know what? No, I'm gonna have to. Look, I don't give a fuck about the picture of the mansion. I want to talk to him. Okay. I need to rewind this. Was that when I got the ammo? Look what it says here. Oh no, sorry. I actually literally thought for a second there was a spelling. I thought it said shelf. That would have been so funny. I know, poor Kenneth. But I don't, I don't like Kenneth. What did Kenneth ever do to you now? Come on. It's not fair. Kenneth's a nice guy. Do you know what I've learned as well? Because I'm like, I'm like a fucking, what's the word? I don't know. But I just like human psychology. I don't study it. But I do actually, that's the thing. I do, I just don't study it in a college. I just don't study it from a textbook that was written by somebody else. And, you know, like I base it off what I see around me. But yeah, basically I teach myself on human psychology. But one thing I've learned in terms of response is laughing. I find that when people react, unless it's a joke of course, but like if I'm making a video like this, right, and I'm hitting those hard, cold, solid facts and truths about Resident Evil, and people react to it with, like, laughing. And it's not just a Resident Evil discussion, it could be anything. Like when you present a truth to somebody, and if they don't like that truth, they react by laughing. And I feel like that is a form of, like, it's almost a form of anger, even though they're laughing. Bear with me now. But it's like, they don't know how to react. So they can choose to cry, like a little baby, because they know what I'm saying is true, or they can laugh. So it's like they just choose to laugh instead. Ha ha, look at this guy talking shit, ha ha. No, my boy. I'm speaking truth. Big Austin 619, love the name. Welcome to Green Hill Gaming. How are you doing on this superb Friday night? Welcome to my Resident Evil discussion. I've done 2 of these so far. This is my 3rd one. Well, to be fair, on this channel, like in total, I've probably done a lot more than fucking 3 Resident Evil discussion live streams, that's for sure. It's a discussion, but it's more than anything. It's a message. It's a message to the Zoomer, the Gen Z Resident Evil fans, who claim to be fans of the Resident Evil series, but when they're presented with this game, which is Resident Evil, the very series that they claim to be fans of, some of them react with, "Oh, this game is old. It's outdated. I don't like this game. I couldn't play this game. I prefer 4, 5, 6, 7 in Village." This is Resident Evil. Fixed camera angles, tank controls, true survival horror, true resource management. This is Resident Evil. So my message is, and my truth to those Zoomers is that if this is too old for you, then you are too young to consider yourself a Resident Evil fan. Doing good, just checking random streams. Well, great to have you in the live stream. Random but true. Random is some funny cat video. But what you were hearing in this live stream is truth, my friend. Oh fuck. come at me. Get off, you bastard. It's actually hard to connect a knife. These bastard zombies. I think people who do like knife-only speedruns on Resident Evil are fucking gods, to be honest. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a fan of the Resident Evil series. That's fine. I'm gonna say one more thing though. If you don't consider yourself a fan of Resident Evil, then like, how can I word this? Like, so you wouldn't be a fan of Resident Evil. So, like, if you don't like something about the series, then like that would tie into the fact that you're not a fan of the series. You know what I'm saying? I've only played 7 and 8. One of them is the remix. So yeah, you wouldn't fall under the category of people that I'm trying to aim this live stream at. That's not to say that you're not welcome in the live stream. Of course you are. Of course you're welcome. Great to have you in the live stream. Thank you for being in the live stream. Much appreciated. So I'm aiming this video at people who claim to be fans of the series. You know, people who claim to be part of the Resident Evil community. Oh my god, when I hear that too, I just fucking cringe, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm tired of people creating communities. So like, if you go against the community, you went against the community, you're an outsider, you are an unbeliever. You know, fuck off with this community bullshit. Seriously. And that goes with everything outside of video games. Just, I don't like to be associated with a community. Like, I am just Johnny who played Resident Evil on the PlayStation and loved it. And I know what Resident Evil is because I've played it. So I don't need to be a part of the community, you know, to say those things. And I don't give a fuck what somebody, you know, says, you know, but I'm part of the Resident Evil community. You're not. So fuck off. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, sorry. yeah. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway. Like, I'll tell you what a community is, especially when it comes to video games. A community nowadays is a fucking social media thread. And generally what happens is, like, people see a certain comment show up and...
Whoa!
Jesus Christ, Rebecca, calm down. And they just basically copy what someone is saying online, basically. That's the community. So, like, everyone seems to, like, universally agree with everyone in the community. I'm telling you, it's the most cringiest fucking thing ever. Honestly.
Oh no! Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
You must be from the Bravo team.
Yes, I'm Rebecca Chambers. I'm a newcomer. I just joined the STARS Bravo team last month. Well, I'm really sorry. Are you all right?
Yes. I'm Chris Redfield from the Alpha team. Are you the only person here from the Bravo team?
Well, because the helicopter made a forced landing, I just ran into this house anyway, but
I see. There's nothing else you could have done anyway. It's good you're here.
Yes, sir. But it's strange. I serviced the helicopter recently, but something went wrong with the engine. It was such a short flight.
Again, take no notice of the voice acting. Because Capcom literally just grabbed people from the street and said, hey, do you want to be a voice actor in this game that we're making? We'll pay you. And naturally said yes. So, yeah. That's why the voice acting isn't quite, like, of quality. Might as well put away the equipment because this isn't going to be like a walkthrough or anything. I've completed this game many times now over the years, so don't need to do it again. And item box, resource management, item management, inventory management, whatever you want to call it. Big part of Resident Evil as well. You see, like, this is Resident Evil. And if it was a case of, like, I mean, what you're looking at, every single thing, right, that I spoke about, okay, fixed camera angles, tank controls, resource management, and 100% survival horror was in the sequel 2, it was in 3, it was in Code Veronica, it was in 0, and it was in the Resident Evil 1 remake. Those are 6 games. It's not like this was a once-off thing, and Capcom said, nah, people didn't like this, so we'll change it. Obviously people liked it. And that's why we got a sequel. And obviously people liked it enough to buy the sequel, which is why 3 came along. Which is why Code Veronica came along. Like, game developers don't make games for the benefit of themselves. Do you know what I mean? They're obviously basing it off, like, demand. So there was obviously demand for these games. So this is Resident Evil. The only reason it changed into action horror is because Capcom unfortunately listened to younger gamers who never played Resident Evil before. And that's what happened. That's the truth of the matter. What's the best game in the series in Mo? God, I hate those questions. Thanks for the question though. But I can never answer those questions. People ask me, like, what's your top 5 games of all time? And I could be here for the next fucking 2 hours trying to answer it. It would probably have to be the original Resident Evil 1 for its atmosphere. Not just because it was the first game that I played, because I was there from the beginning, you see. It would probably have to be 1, yeah. It certainly wouldn't be fucking 5 or 6, one of those fucking crappy fucking games. Well, they're good games for what they are. I mean, I want to make one thing clear as well. I mean, every game after Code Veronica and 0, I've played. Okay, I've played Resident Evil 4, I've played 5. I even attempted to play 6, but I just couldn't fucking stick it. I played 7, I played Village. They're all good games for what they are. But, like, the thing about it is, I just didn't get, like, when I played Code Veronica and I played 0, okay, I knew I was playing a Resident Evil game. I got the same experience I got when I played 3, 2, and 1. The exact same experience. So the quality was obviously better, you know, on Code Veronica and 0 and the remake of 1. But I felt like I was playing a Resident Evil game. I didn't feel that with 4. Not when Leon Emo Kennedy was jumping out the fucking window 5 minutes into the game. And kicking open doors and suplexing fucking humans. That wasn't Resident Evil. I mean, where was the fixed camera angles? Where was the fucking tank controls? Where was the true sense of survival horror? Where was the true sense of resource management? Gone. All in the favour of Action Man Kennedy. I mean, 5... Do I need to say any more about 5? I mean, a good game for what it is, but fuck me, that is not a Resident Evil game. Did not for 1 second feel like I was playing a Resident Evil. With the exception of the story. It just wasn't Resident Evil. 6 is just a heap of shit. 7 brought back the horror, but where the fuck was any of the main characters from the series? And where was any, talking about story, where was any connection to the story of Resident Evil? You know? And Village just focused, I would say, it's a great game, great story, but when you think of it, it just focused too much on like what was going on with Ethan and his personal life. It was like, what the hell's that got to do with anything? You know? I can see why people don't like Village now as much, but I did like it though. I think it was a great game, like great twists and turns and everything. Again, it was a great game for what it is. And that's the thing. Like, people like these games, but what they have to realise is, if you like 4, 5 and 6, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is people claiming to be fans of Resident Evil. If you're a fan of 4, 5 and 6, and 7 and Village, cool. I am too. But when you say that you're a fan of Resident Evil, and when Resident Evil is put in front of you, and you say, oh, this is outdated, that's what I'm talking about. You know? Yeah. So yeah, it's that's the thing. That's the thing. People claiming to be fans of the series, but they're not fucking fans of the series. Yeah. Wasn't I meant to be a chemical in this room? Or am I thinking of the remake? But yeah. Plus I put over to my goon. I'm all over the place with this game.
What should I do now? If you go out to search for the other members, how about letting me come with you?
I think we should stay here.
It's pretty dangerous outside. Let me take care of it.
I understand. For now, I'll wait here.
Thing I heard about Village
Since
is that
there are a
Capcom
lot
said
of
they turned
chemicals
down
in this room and they
the
might
horror.
be useful.
Oh yeah?
Well,
That's something.
I'll look over the chemicals.
Thank you for reminding me of that, actually, because I actually had never really kind of thought about that. That's a very interesting point. Imagine Capcom, the company that made all these jump scares in Resident Evil, the crows, the zombie dogs bursting through the windows, Nemesis bursting through the window in RPD, all these jump scares, survival horror, scare, frights, literally saying we turned down the horror in Village because 7 was too scary. Right? Because a couple of fucking Zoomer fucking kids were like, oh, this is too scary. Where's Chris Redfield punching boulders? Oh. Do you know? That's actually a very good point, actually. That's actually a very good point. I mean, Resident Evil is supposed to be scary. It's survival horror. Like, I'm sorry, it doesn't work this. Like, it doesn't... You can't... Like, if you were new to the series, you don't get to tell people what Resident Evil is if you are new to the series. If you haven't played this, if you don't want to play this, if this is too old for you, then you definitely do not fucking get to tell people what Resident Evil is and what Resident Evil isn't. I do. And people like me do, because we played the series. We played the series all the way up to Code Veronica and Zero. We know what Resident Evil is. We know what survival horror is. We don't need some fucking Zoomer telling us what survival horror is based off fucking Outlast. Or fucking some other survival horror game. Okay? We know what survival horror is. We've played survival horror when you were sucking on your mother's tits. Let's face it. I want you alive. Oh fuck, is it? Speaking of alive, this fuck was it alive. But yeah. RE7 wasn't scary. It was RE7 was scary. Okay, I think RE7 was scary in a lot of areas. I mean, I genuinely do feel like 7 and even Village was scary. Think about it as though scary is just one aspect, of a very oh Jesus Christ, of a very extensive series. Like there's other elements. It's not just see that's where Capcom are going wrong. That is where Capcom are going. Like speaking of going wrong, I'm fucking going the wrong way. That's where Capcom are going horribly wrong. Like they either give horror, but not enough like resource management. They just can't seem to get the perfect kind of blend anymore. You know, it's always like one thing over the other, and yeah, it just doesn't work. They can't quite get that perfect combination of what makes Resident Evil anymore. But what makes it more annoying is when you just have these fucking Zoomers who are like, oh, I'm part of the Resident Evil community. You're not. You're just a kid playing Resident Evil. Or there's an action horror game called Resident Evil. I wish I actually knew where I was going. I know, wait a second, I had the key. I had a key this whole time. I'll use the mansion key. So this is the iconic scene. So I must not playing this game at all, so it's probably going to happen here in a second. Oh shit, I pushed it wrong. Oh, please. This there. Still gets me. Like, the reason that's people will look at that, and people like Zoomers in particular will look at that and they'll say, oh, that's scary. The fucking pixels jumping through a window. It's fucking hilarious, that. The thing about it is, like, fuck off. That's the thing about it, first of all. Fuck off. Go play Fortnite. And then talk to me about fucking graphics. But anyway, point of the matter is, it's just such a quiet, like, isolated atmosphere, right? Combined with fixed camera angles, and then out of nowhere, boom, fucking these like monsters are jumping through a fucking window. I'm actually gonna rewind because I fucked up. Jumping through a window, like that is something. It doesn't matter because I don't actually. How many bit? Like 12 bullets. I can. It's such an iconic scene in gaming, not just Resident Evil, but in gaming. And I want to talk about something as well. Like, people have an issue with the tank controls because of the way that Chris holds the weapon. Oh, you can't hold it freely. It's not real. It's not real. It's not real. It's not real. When's the last time you fucking walked into a fucking mansion in the middle of the fucking woods and had fucking zombie dogs jumping through a fucking window? You idiot. Video games are not real. They're not supposed to be real. When are people going to get that through to their thick skulls? I don't think it'll ever happen. Unfortunately, I don't think it'll ever happen. I don't think their little brains will ever grasp the concept that video games are not fucking real. And Chris is dead. Just like the series. I think it's the perfect way to end the live stream, actually. I actually think that is the perfect and only way to end this stream. You died, Resident Evil. You died, but Resident Evil 0 and Code Veronica. I was hoping they would just stay on that. Actually, I can. Yeah. And you just. Yeah. We'll stay on the you died screen for the next few minutes as I wrap up the live stream. So, yeah, perfect, appropriate way to end, to wrap up the live stream. Anyone who knows me, my wrap ups, oh my dear God. I've had wrap ups that lasted an hour. Just bear that in mind. Yeah, literally an hour. So what do I want to say next? Did I come across as aggressive? Yes. Did I come across as offensive? Yes. Did I come across as a old moaning millennium? Yes. Yes to all of those things, possibly more that I can't even think of. Do I care? No. Because that's what happens when you tell the truth. There's no easy way to tell the truth. If I had to break bad news to someone, there's no easy way to do that. There's no right or wrong way to do it. There's no politically correct way to do it. You just tell someone the truth. And that's what I'm doing these last few Resident Evil live streams, is telling the truth about Resident Evil. I mean, I can't help if you don't like that. I'm not responsible for your reaction to the truth. And I don't see why anyone should take it so personally anyway, unless you actually work for Capcom. And even if you do work for Capcom, why would you care? You're just sitting on a fucking multi-fucking billion, I don't know, a billion, like multi-million fucking dollar fucking franchise. Why would you care what one person on YouTube talking about your service? So why should anyone take it personally? So that's something I wanted to start off in wrapping up this live stream. The next thing is I genuinely love this series. I would say that Resident Evil is my favorite video game series. I mean, I don't like picking one particular game series over others. I don't like giving like a top 3 or top 5 or top 10 of my all time, favorite video games. I just can't do that. I've played a lot of games over the years and I've enjoyed a lot of them, so I can't do that. But I can say that Resident Evil is my favorite video game series. So when you like a series as much as I do with Resident Evil, you're going to like be passionate about it when you're talking about it. So there's that. There was that. And I suppose the next thing is just recapping what I've been saying. So what I've been saying for the last few streams, Resident Evil discussion live streams, is that Resident Evil is fixed camera angles, tank controls, 100% survival horror, true resource management, and like a real like Resident Evil survival horror like save system, no checkpoints, nothing like that. And if you consider yourself a Resident Evil fan, but you feel that this game is too old for you, well then you are simply too young to be a Resident Evil fan. Oh, you're a bit late for the trolling, man. You literally joined at the end of the live stream. Oh no, wait. He's not trolling. Reverse psychology, my friend. Interesting. It is the best, yeah. And welcome to Green Hill Gaming, as always, my friend. Well, welcome to the end of my Resident Evil discussion live stream. But you're right. It is the best. This is the game that started the series. There wouldn't be a Resident Evil series without this. I mean, you're not just going to have... Like, Resident Evil 4 wouldn't just magically appear on the shelf. Like, you wouldn't walk into a video game shop and see... Lightning Shadow 4. I just came up with a random fucking name. Like, you wouldn't just have the 4th entry in a series just magically appear. That wouldn't happen. You'd be like, what the fuck is going on here? Why has this game magically appeared that I've never heard of it before? Nobody's ever heard it before and called 4. No. The reason there was a Resident Evil 4 was not because millions of people bought it. Because that wouldn't make any sense, would it? The reason there was a Resident Evil 4 was because there was a Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, Code Veronica, 0, and Remake. That's why 4 existed. So that's an important thing to keep in mind as well. Good night, my good friend. Good night indeed. And good night, Big Austin 619. Love that name. Love that name. Big Austin 619 said, I just gave you the 619. See you next time. And hello, Nicole, my good friend. You're also very welcome to Green Hill Gaming, as always. How are you keeping? I know Star Wars did that with the movies. What happens? This kind of thing happens in every medium, believe me. You're so right. It happens with Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica. You could go on and you could go down every single avenue. It does happen, and it's unfortunate when it happens, especially someone who's as passionate about the particular franchise as I am. So it does, yeah, 100% happens everywhere. It really does. Someone like me has to come out there and just speak that truth and just spit that truth and just hit those hard facts. What do people want to hear or not? The funny thing about it is, like everyone like complains, about something. Like someone goes on about something over and over again. You're like, Jesus Christ, here we go again. They're going on about it again. And you really like politely just sit there and listen to it anyway. So like everyone is like me. I'm not the only person like this, am I? Come on, we always, quote unquote, complain about something. But I don't consider myself complaining. I don't consider myself ranting. I don't consider myself doing any of those things. I'm just a man speaking the truth about a series that I love. Like you have people who, like, see, the thing is, it's mostly people who criticize something they don't like. Like if you're an Xbox fanboy, you're going to hate PlayStation. And you're going to bang on about why you hate PlayStation. And vice versa, if you're a PlayStation fanboy, you're going to bang on why you hate Xbox. That's complaining. Because you're hating on something that you hate, that you have no positive, interaction with. I love Resident Evil. As I said, it's my favorite video game series of all time. Anyone who knows me, anyone who truly knows me, knows that. So this isn't me hating on Resident Evil. This isn't me complaining. I love Resident Evil. The fact of the matter is I want Resident Evil back. I don't consider 4 onwards Resident Evil games. And I feel if there is a Zoomer Resident Evil fan who feels like this game is too old for them, well then they are too young to call themselves a Resident Evil fan. Because this isn't something that they appreciate. This isn't something they want to interact with. So it's not for you. It's as simple as that. It's not for you. Like 4, 5, 6, 7 Village is for them because it's action horror. The thing is, it's an action horror game with the title Resident Evil. Do you know what the biggest example I'm going to give is Halloween 3, isn't it? Yeah, Halloween 3. Season of the Witch. I don't even think I have to say anything more, but you know me, I will. I mean, that didn't even feature Michael Myers. Technically, it did feature Michael Myers because the movie Halloween was on the TV, but like that had absolutely nothing to do with Halloween. But it was called Halloween 3. Do you understand? There was a movie called Final Fantasy Spirits Within or something like that. I think it was called that. It had absolutely nothing to do with Final Fantasy. But yet it was still called Final Fantasy. Like just because you slap a brand, like a name, onto a box, doesn't make it like the franchise that it claims to be part of. So like Capcom can slap on Resident Evil on as many games as they like. But if it doesn't have the fixed camera angles, the tank controls, the 100% survival horror, then it's not Resident Evil. Now, I could go on about it and say it over and over again for the next 10 and 20 minutes, but I'm not. I think I've said my piece in this discussion. There may be more moving forward, but look, I've said enough. In closing, if you can't appreciate Resident Evil, if you don't like Resident Evil, if you hate Resident Evil, if you feel Resident Evil is too old for you, well then you're too young to call yourself a fan of Resident Evil, because disliking, hating, not appreciating, looking down on, not supporting, those are all terms that are literally the opposite to fan. So you can't claim to be a fan of Resident Evil if you don't like Resident Evil. I can't believe I even had to say this because it's so simple. It's so simple. It's such a simple concept, yet I feel I had to sit here and actually explain it. But that's the overall point of this live stream. As I'm closing, is like you literally cannot call yourself a fan of Resident Evil if you don't like Resident Evil. What I've been playing in this live stream for the last almost 2 hours is Resident Evil. So if you've sat here and watched this and didn't like what you saw, then you're not a Resident Evil fan. And it doesn't work in the way, as I said earlier in the live stream, it doesn't work this way. It doesn't work with like, oh, I don't like Resident Evil 1, but I like 4. I mean, that's like saying, I'm a fan of Arsenal, but I only like this Arsenal team 20 years ago. Strange analogy, but it's the same logic. It's the same logic. You can't just pick and choose. Like, you can't just pick and choose. So yeah, it doesn't work that way. So yeah, I'm going to say goodnight. Sleep well. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next live stream. And just to piss people off, there'll be a lot more live streams like this in the future. Sleep well, my friend.